Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we're continuing our week-long discussion about balanced training programs. We're going to be learning more about what athletes can teach us about how to prevent injuries and how to increase performance. We've got one of the best sports physios in the country here. We're getting into it. It's time to rock, everyone. If you're new to the tribe, Rich is behind the mix. This is me at the table, Rad Burmeister, and I'm here today with Naleshi Murti from ADPT Physio. And we are Unity Gym, experts at turning driven people into athletes. Today's episode is brought to you by the Unified Movement System, the only online program effectively balancing strength, flexibility, and fitness so you can unleash your inner athlete. Get daily coaching by us, plus our Epic Foundations Prep program and revolutionary structural balance blueprint, so that you can create your ideal program and optimize your performance. As a valued listener, you can use the link in the description to get your first month free. Before we get started, warm welcome if you're on the live stream in the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. Leave us a comment and we'll send you some love. Remember, anyone can join that group and interact with us while we record these shows live. And lastly, shout out to our YouTube athletes and podcast listeners catching the replay. Hit the like button to support our channels and subscribe if you like what you see or hear. How are you today, Nalesh?
Go on, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, man. Really good. Looking forward to another good topic of discussion with you. I love these discussions. It's really interesting, not only just to talk to a physio with with your experience and passion, but a sports physio, somebody who's worked with professional athletes for 9 years now, is it?
Yep, 9 seasons in.
Yeah, 9 seasons. Yeah.
It's been a while. Hopefully with today's chat, we shed some light on how we get our athletes to perform. Yeah. But actually, before performing, prevent injuries, maintain, and get them to the top of the level. So we'll shed some light on that.
Yeah. So what is it? What's sum it up for us?
I think what we do really well, and I think it spans across all sports and in our allied health profession, is we know how to split their training up.
Yep.
And create a good balance. Expose them to what they need to be exposed, and expose them to their deficiencies or asymmetries.
Yep.
Or weaknesses and so forth. So I think we did that really well, and that goes in different variants. There's different cycles they go through where there's some grunt times where they're lifting big loads, and there's some low times where they're doing a lot of stability work, control work, and that ranges from Pilates to mobility, flexibility, and then obviously comes when they have to perform, and all those kind of little taps or little pillars that we've addressed in pre-season or weeks going into the season gets exposed and used to its optimum come in season or come game day.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
So what? So it's not really like, because when you're an average punter or somebody that just watches all the highlights, or follows your team or whatever, I guess there's a perception that athletes train way harder than everyone. Is that true?
No, that's not true. I think they train hard and they know how to get to that next level. They know how to push themselves off the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
Your average punter can't do that.
Yeah.
But like we highlight, that they do the little things right, and all adds up to one ultimate goal, which they do it really well. And that comes with having a good training split. They go through different loading cycles off their week. So that being an example I bring in, so they're Monday to Friday come in pre-season, they'll have 2 big heavy days where they're lifting heavy squats or heavy trap bar deadlifts or big push press stuff. But then there's a low and a medium day where a lot of stability work's brought in or mobility work's brought in, and single arm, single leg work brought in just to create stability, strength, control. All the big pillars that we do at Unity Gym, but as we know, athletes do day in, day out without even thinking it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. So a lot of planning and preparation rather than just balls to the wall
exactly right.
style of workouts.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure you see all your Instagram videos when guys are squatting X amount.
Yep.
They don't do that every day.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They'd probably do it once in a 5-week cycle, and they work their way up there. They have that progressive overload, which you want in athletes, you want in any athlete, or you want in any type of training to get results.
Yep.
If not, you'll have overuse, injury, and you'll come see me.
Yeah. That's interesting to me, because I'm actually remembering a couple of conversations with a friend of ours, Sebastian Oreb, aka Australian Strength Coach on Instagram. He's one of the strongest people in the world. He holds several powerlifting, trophies and records in Australia. Don't quote me. Maybe he doesn't hold records. Maybe they've been broken now. But I know he's definitely won, the national powerlifting championships at least once or twice. He's the strength coach for Hafthor Bjornsson, and he was his coach leading up to and during the year where he took out the Arnold Classic, the strongest man, world's strongest man, and Europe's strongest man, whatever it was. It's like the trifecta of
He's strong.
He's a very, very strong dude. And when I was talking to him, he was talking about how, because he's got a lot of injuries, and I asked him what had changed for him now, because he says he hasn't had any bad injuries for a while. And he said, man, I don't train to failure anymore. I worked with a couple of guys. I'm pretty sure they're called the Lily Bridges. I think he said it's a father and son team, and he said they're from, I think they're from America, and they're champion powerlifters, and they talked to him about the idea that the people that are not from Australia, for the rest of the world, that are winning the powerlifting tournaments, none of them lift max when they're training, because there's too much risk in it. And they only do that in competition. So the training is always sub-maximal, prepares them, and then when they step out on stage and they're competing, they lift maximally. Could you relate that to an athlete? Like game day is, that competition where they push themselves. Obviously, they're not going to back off a bit if they've got to, run a ball down or,
well, I think that echoes really well with, what we do. I think, as you say, the powerlifters or your strongmen, they'll do their sub-max lifts, and in our world we call that, we build your capacity, or you build your engine up, and that's how athletes do that really well, because come game day they're able to tap that engine and expose themselves and work to that 90%, and then they find that extra 10%. Of course, that extra 10%'s work leading into seasons, into games and so forth, and that ties in perfectly what your average Joe does. They don't build their capacity, nor do they even bother building that 6-cylinder engine. They go game day. They go.
I'm just going out and hitting it. Yeah.
I had a client the other day. On my knee sore. I did the first 10K run.
Yep.
I'm like, how often have you run? I don't run. But I got a program and I'm doing a 10K run. Again, you want to build your way up, and the athletes do that really well.
Yep.
They build engine capacity. They bulletproof themselves. Come hamstring, knee, quad, whatever it is, and then they come game day to perform at that 10%, that mark where the red zone, which obviously your strength coach does really well, your powerlifters do really well, and of course your athletes do day in day out in AFL 22 weeks straight. Yep.
And this is definitely something that the average punters out there are really messing up, isn't it? Because I've seen that a lot myself, and if you're saying you see it as well, being a physio, I've seen it when Yanni and I used to work at Fitness First. For those of you that are listening from overseas, Fitness First is a big chain gym. Pretty sure they're from the UK, but they've come to Australia. It's where we got our start in the fitness industry, and I've got nothing but respect for Fitness First. They're a great business, but the members there, the people that aren't working with a coach, that aren't working with somebody to guide them, when you see the way that they train, man, do they hammer themselves. And then you hear the kinds of injuries that people have, where they talk about, they come into the gym, you see them lifting all this weight, training every day, and then you see them come in next week with their arm in a sling, and you say, man, what happened to you? And they say, oh, mate, I was down at the beach and I just went for a wave, or, I threw a ball and, I threw my shoulder out, or I went for a wave, and I threw my back out. And you think, how unfortunate is that you go to the gym every day, lift weights, do all of this, but then you can't handle getting a wave or throwing a ball down at the beach on the weekend? Like, that is very poor preparation for life, right? Yeah. Just life. Whereas if you understand how to do this stuff like athletes do, that's nothing, right? I mean, these guys kill themselves on the field in something like AFL. That going down to the beach and kicking a footy around with your mates, like it's nothing. They'll run rings around you, So that is something that it's interesting to hear you say how much better the athletes are doing it than everyone, because my personal view and observation of people at the gym is that they get it really, really wrong. So athletes do it differently. Huh?
I think we touched on this yesterday, but it's good to probably revisit it. I think the difference between your average Joe or your everyday people versus athletes is the athletes trust the process. They know what the end goal looks like, and they're happy to go week by week and build and get there. I think most everyday people and most people I see that have had a injury where they've just gone 0 to 100. It's I just want to run, so I run every day now. Or I want to get strong, so I just lift every day now. And there's no macro loading, there's no recovery, there's no mobility, there's no low days, there's no recovery days. And again, I can keep going. And there's.
But and how does it look different for an athlete? What does that process look like for somebody that gets it right and performs at the top level?
Like again, we'll use a Monday to Friday example. Actually, we'll use a Monday to Friday example. They'll have a high day Monday.
Is that how they work? Is their job Monday to Friday and then
Saturday game day?
Saturday game day.
In season is very different. Like if I mention in season, they do nothing through the week.
Really?
In comparison to what they do game day.
Yeah,
so they basically have so we'll go. So if they're playing Saturday, they'll have a very low recovery based Monday.
Yeah.
Some light, upper body gym stuff on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday they'll go out, run, get some Ks in the legs, get some skills going.
Yeah.
Have Thursday off for recovery, fly Friday if they need to fly, and play Saturday.
Wow.
And it's funny, is that it? Is what you're probably thinking right now. But that's because if you go back 4 months, they've spent their time to build that engine up to have not 6 pistons but 8. Right. They've got a big cylinder engine they're working now. So it goes back to having high days, recovery days, medium days, and low days where you have your 8 hours sleep, recovery at the beach, go throw a footy at the park and not do your shoulder.
Yeah, because I've always been a firm believer, and I've experienced it myself, that it takes a hell of a lot of work to achieve something that you've never been able to do before, but to maintain what you've already got is very, very little work. Like, people always ask me about flexibility. I've achieved a better than average result with flexibility for somebody who got that result in their 30s. And people say, how much work do you have to do to maintain it? And I say almost nothing, like virtually nothing. I just hit the positions a couple of times a week or every day. I'll just move my body a little bit, like this, a bit of general mobility, and I maintain about 90% of where my best effort was. But to get there, God, did I have to work hard.
Yeah, you build your capacity up for it.
Yeah, that's right. And I got that wrong a lot. I didn't realise when I was doing it how much recovery played a part even in flexibility training. So what does it look like for the pre-season? What does pre-season training look like when they're not doing game?
So this is when all the grunt's done, but this is funny. All the grunt's done, they've still got days to recover. So your Monday, Friday being your big days. An example, I use the big squat days, the big bench days. Tuesday, Thursday, your low days where they have beach recovery, they're getting the boots, massage and so forth. And your Wednesdays, they're lifting still, but at a low intensity where there's mobility or flexibility into their program. They're doing single arm, single length lifts, also create stability to again bulletproof them again from getting tackled and having some stability in terms of their knee, landing and so forth. So that's how, as you can see, it's very, really well. It goes high, low, medium, low, high. And then come Saturday, Sunday, they have recovery.
Game day. It kind of sounds like you're describing a health retreat, actually, like just kicking by, beach days, a little bit of weights here.
And get paid for it.
Yeah, that's it.
But they do that really well. But that's the thing is when they have to lift, they lift.
Yeah.
And they get their numbers, and that's when the numbers matters, the reps matters. Then your recovery days, what matters is, okay, cool, you sleep. Did you get your massage, or did you get on the foam roller, nutrition, all the little things that we don't think matters probably matters because it gets them ready for the Friday's lift, Friday's running session. And all it does is it makes us as health professionals, our jobs easier because players are prepared to perform, and it's they're not peaking every day.
Yeah,
they peak come game day. They keep peak come competition. So
and they. The recovery is a massive part of it, isn't it?
Massive.
Yeah. Yep. Like that's actually, like a part of their week, isn't it? Like it's programmed in, like you're recovering today, or you're doing this for recovery and stuff, which is really different from average Joe hitting the gym, isn't it? Like most people are like they can barely find an hour to get to the gym, so they want to make that hour as valuable as they can. So they just hammer themselves, and then they go into a stressful, 10 to 14 hour workday, and, trying to meet family obligations, not getting enough sleep. And then, it's gym, I've only got an hour to train, I'm going to go for it, and it's just like adding stress, adding stress,
cycle, and then boom, come 5-6 week mark, I'm getting knee pain. So I think, they've got a program in there, but the things they do, it's dumbed down. It's not science. It's where they walk off. They get the recovery protein shakes, which, average Joe can have that packed in their bag and shake that up.
For sure.
They go home, they have they don't have a prepared dinner, they make it themselves like everyday people. They go to the beach, they've got a foam roller, they've got a golf ball, they've got hockey, you know what I mean? So all the little things they do well. Obviously, novelty comes in where everyone sees it. They've got a recovery boot to jump into and zip it up and sit on their phone. But things like that can be done with skins. Going to the jumping in the pool and so forth. So,
I think people. A lot of people ask me, like when they come to the gym and they start learning about foam rolling or learning about trigger point release, things like that, and they ask you all these questions, and I don't realize as a trainer how much I've learnt over my decade and how much I take for granted. But it's funny that so much of the things I don't teach to other people, because unfortunately, if you're doing a class and you've got an hour, you've only got so much time, and people want to see a result. They want to see that they're getting stronger, fitter, more flexible, losing fat, building muscle, working towards skills, all the good stuff. And even on shows like this, like, people usually aren't really as interested in hearing about, again, that you should use foam rollers and what they're going to do for you or whatever. But I think people really undervalue what goes into being a professional athlete, and how it's all those little 1% things that add up, right? Because the more and more I talk to you, the more it validates my personal opinion that success is just about as much, it's just as much about what you're willing to do as what you're willing to give up, And for a lot of people, they're not willing to, like, they want they're hammering their career, they've got their relationship, their family, whatever, and they're like, okay, I want to get really fit and healthy. And you think, okay, well, what you're talking about is adding more stress to your life and your body, which has a payoff. It definitely, it has a way of reducing stress as well, as you get the benefits from going to the gym and training. But there has to be a trade-off. If you're going to give this amount of time, there's got to be something that's going to be taken away to allow you to recover from that, so it's not just adding stress into your life. And it sounds to me, hearing you talk, that's definitely something that we could learn from athletes, is that they really get that right.
100%. They get that right because they know the day before they've worked. And they've worked 100%, not gone to the gym and ticked a box. That's the difference. And then and they get paid to sit around and chill and relax and recover from it, right? Because that's probably another difference. That's a big difference, isn't it?
Well, it's massive, isn't it? Because you think about that. Because there's a lot of people that go out and play footy on the weekends, and they'll do a full 120 minutes. Like if people play not AFL, if they play Aussie rules, I guess it's called, is if you're not in the AFL, right? There's people that still play 4 30-minute quarters, right? Like they still do it. But then they've got to go to their job. They've got to get up at 6 a.m. on Monday and still go to their job. And then they go and do their training on a Tuesday and a Thursday after work.
Correct. And
miss out, get home at 9:30 or whatever, squeeze in the gym somehow, and then play and go hard on the weekend. So as I describe this, and as I see you nodding, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, wow, I do that. I play cricket or footy or, gridiron or whatever, hockey, whatever it is, maybe you need to think about what an athlete's doing differently than you to prevent injuries and increase performance. And I have been surprised to hear over all these talks that we've had with people like you on this show that often it's not that they train like an athlete. Often it's that they just get these 1%ers, right?
The little things right. The little things that matter and little things that aren't spoken of. Because the media obviously portrays someone, running fast and lifting and or media, when I say media, Instagram and so forth. It's just the perception that people have. You don't see the boys go home early, or day off, pay themselves and get a massage, or go to the beach at 6 a.m. in the winter before coming to the club. Like, they're the things you don't see. And what does it look like differently if one of them gets an injury? Like, say they get a shoulder injury and
I mean, describe a common injury to me. What's a common injury?
At the moment, we've got a couple of shoulders. Shoulders are a trend
ones,
at the moment with us. Yeah.
So what happened? So old matey, comes off the field, took a hard hit, injured shoulder. Gets it. What do they get assessed on Monday? How does it work?
They get assessed, and again, we've had two. They've had surgery. They still follow the same principles the guys that are training follow. They still train hard in different capacities. So, example, they've got a shoulder injury. There's nothing wrong with their legs, right? So they still lift.
They still go for it.
When allowed to, they can start running again.
Yeah.
Obviously, during that time, we start rehabbing their shoulder, and yes, they're doing a bit more than your average athlete now, and the recovery focus is even more.
Yep.
Yes, they have Saturday, Sunday off. You're not playing games, but they're doing recovery. They're on the bike.
So it's definitely not, oh, you're injured, you're just going to sit out for a few weeks now and not do anything.
I reckon you end up doing more.
Yeah.
But you do more, but you recover more and you have more time.
Yeah, and because you're not playing on the weekend on Saturday for that period of time, your body can handle it, right?
Exactly
because
right,
you're not adding all that load on the game day, so you can handle more load during the week.
The funny thing is though, with most athletes, it's funny, they just look at it as injury as an opportunity. Yeah, they get injured, they're like, okay, cool, what more can I do? Yeah. All right, I'm weak, lower limb. Can I lift more? If it's a shoulder injury, can I squat more? That's what
I've always done, man. Whenever I see an injury, whenever I've had a bad injury, for me, there is a short period of time where I get down from it. Like there's that initial I've got to modify my program again. I've got to come up with a different because I put a lot of work into strategizing how my training is going to look for the next cycle, and then when that goes out the window, I more think, shit, I've got to fucking re-strategize now, think about what I'm going to do. But once I get past that, I always see it as an opportunity for growth. Because this injury and working with you've highlighted things that are going on in my shoulder that's made me reflect back on things that I'd forgotten about that had happened in the past. That's made me think, man, I didn't deal with that properly. That's why this is happening. And all the dots start to connect. And that's a massive, that's a really good place to be, in my opinion, to be aware of why things have happened and to have an understanding of what it is that you need to do to get better. And I find immense value in that personally.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I think it's getting the little things right, not the big rocks, ticking all your boxes, and we'll bring it up again. It's not what you do; it's how you get there.
Yeah, that's right. And that's an interesting thing. If you haven't heard Nalesh say that before, a really common thing that we hear at the gym, and that I'm sure you probably hear as a physio, but I can't think of how many times I've heard this when we get new members that come in. It's Friday, it's deadlift day, and we say, right, here's the movements, sir, we're going to do some deadlifts. And they go, I can't deadlift. I say, why not? And they say, I've got herniated discs, man. And they give me this look like, man, I can't do it. I'm broken. I'll never be able to deadlift again.
I've been told I'm done. I'll be done at 55.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh, man. We've got members in their early 30s. One of our members, actually, Nick, he was an AFL player. He was playing for an AFL team. He was in the AFL 10 years ago. He was in his 20s, and he hurt himself. He hurt his back, and that was it. That was the end of his career. And when he started, this is actually the person that I was thinking of when I was saying this story. When he started, he said exactly that to me. He said, man, I can't it was the Jefferson curl. He said, I cannot do the Jefferson curl because of this or that. And I asked him to explain his injury, and he said, I've got herniated discs, man. And I said, look, I get that, I understand it, but my understanding of the way discs work in the spine is that, like everything else in the body, they do regenerate if you give them the right stimulus, the right input.
Right tools around it, yeah.
So it's not that the deadlift is the bad movement, it's the way that you got there, and it's the fact that you weren't prepared for however much you deadlifted. So I said, let's just do a Jefferson curl with 4 kilos, and he said, man, I can't lift any weight and bend over. And I said, all right, no problem. Let's do no weight, and we'll just go through the movement pattern and you can feel it out. And he started with that, went to 4, went to 6, went to whatever. And I think it was about 8 months later that I saw him deadlifting 140 kilos with great technique, and he looked really confident with it. It wasn't like he was, at the end of his limits. And I said, man, you couldn't do that when you started, could you? And he smiled and laughed at me. He said, nah, man, my back was stuffed when I started. And I said, wow, and 8 months later, you're deadlifting 140 kilos. And he only weighs about 75 kilos. And he goes, yeah. And that is a really good example of what Nalesh is saying there. It's not what you did, it's how you got there. And it's almost a philosophical thing to say, right? Like for me, when I heard you say that, I really had an aha moment where I stopped and thought, Wow, there's a lot to that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you build your pillars.
Yep.
Your pillars hold you up.
Yep.
Support your pillars. Do your little things right, and you'll get results. Like through the clinic, we get clients. Oh, I've been told this, and I've got a slip disc, and this, and this, and this, and this. But you got to get the basics things right. Lift, move, get strong, do what you can do, work on what you can't do, and ultimately you put it all together. Yeah. You'll get to what you want to do. So yeah,
we're actually working at defining different levels for our members here at the gym, so that we can more clearly say to people, this is when you move here, and that's when you move there. And the definitions that we've come up so far with is level 1, 2, and 3. And level 1 is people that still need to learn the techniques for the fundamental movements. So the stuff that's on our posters out there, which is the basic stuff that you learn when you come in: conventional deadlifts, low bar, squatting, flat bench pressing, just the basic movements. But the idea being that you don't go to level 2, which is where you start testing yourself and creating a custom program. You don't go there until you can do the technique right on the basics. And that's all it is. It's not about, you need to be here for 6 months, you need to be able to lift this much, it's about just you need to be able to do and you don't even need to master the technique, but you need to be able to do it competently without a coach having to correct you where to put your elbows and where to hold your hands and everything like that.
A license to kill, basically, to progress. So
yeah. And, if you're listening to this, I highly recommend that that's where you start. That if you're not at that point yet, if you still need to ask somebody, how do you do a bench press? How do you do a squat? How do you do a deadlift? Don't worry about how much you're lifting yet. Worry about dialing in those that technique, building those pillars like Nalesh just said, and then worry about how much you can lift. Hope you guys got something out of that. I always love having Nalesh on the show. He is an amazing physiotherapist. He's helped me immensely with rehabilitating my slap tear and torn rotator cuff. If you want to connect with him, you can go to adpt.physio and book in for an online consultation, even if you're not in Sydney or in North Sydney. And I can vouch for the amount of guidance and information and invaluable strategies that I've got from just having conversations like this with Nalesh. If you're a switched on person that's willing to, take on board what you're told and implement it, then you'll get a hell of a lot out of an online consult. Thanks for coming on the show today, mate. And everybody that's listening that's in our UMS online coaching group, we will see you in our online coaching call in a minute. Thanks, mate.
See you guys.